Welcome to our latest Wandering Walks of Wonder Walking Tour. Today we're headed to Orangeburg, South Carolina. Orangeburg County and its county seat, Orangeburg, which we'll be walking through today, were named for William IV, Prince of Orange, the son-in-law of King George II. The name was first used in the 1730s for a township on the Edisto River, one of 11 townships created by the governing body of Charlestown. The original township, which was settled along the banks of the Edisto River, was 20,000 acres in size. The head of each family was given 50 acres of land and provisions for 1 year before departing from Charlestown. Swiss and German farmers moved into this region around 1735, and English settlers from the Low Country followed. The center of town in those early years was known as Public Square. We're actually walking through a portion of that today that has been renamed Memorial Plaza. The site of an early trading post, the square continued to grow and became the center of the downtown business, industry, finance, religious life, as well as entertainment. By the early 1800s, downtown provided its citizens with blacksmiths, lawyers, doctors, as well as shopkeepers. The Battle of Eutaw Springs was fought nearby during the Revolutionary War on September the 8th, 1781. It was the last major battle of war in South Carolina. Large plantations using enslaved labor was established in Orangeburg in the 19th century, and the county became a major producer of cotton. Railroads arrived in the area early. Branchville became the first railroad junction in the state in 1840. Union troops under General Sherman passed through Orangeburg in February of 1865. As we head into the downtown area, one of the first buildings that we see is the Lewis Building. This building was constructed in 1904, and it was the late Victorian Lewis Building that sports this projecting corner turret with a beautiful dome roof. The ground floor was the site of Cherry's Drugstore and Fisher's Rexall Pharmacy. The second and third floors were used as office spaces. Ahead of us is Firstner's store. This store was first established more than 100 years ago in August of 1906 by T.B. Firstner. To that point, the 30-year-old Firstner had spent his adult life as a farmer, but he took $900 in savings and borrowed another $900 from the bank to open Firstner's Variety Store. In 1935, the store moved into this terracotta-faced building that was constructed originally in 1912 for the Edisto Bank and Ferris Restaurant. It is one of the oldest variety stores still operating in the country. Right next door is the First National Bank building. The Edisto National Bank moved into this neoclassical home with beautiful twin Doric columns in 1920. Like all of the banks in Orangeburg, Edisto failed during the Great Depression. But the bank eventually did reopen in 1934 as First National Bank. Across the street from us there on our right, we see the old Edisto Theater, which has been renamed as the Orangeburg Part-Time Players Theater. There have been ongoing performances in this theater by the part-time players since 1981. In the years following the Civil War, there were many positive changes that came to the town. The town of Orangeburg itself was incorporated as a city in 1883. In 1887, a water system was built and leased to the city, and at one point a street trolley system was constructed in 1888. The trolley was mule-drawn during the day to carry passengers, but with the aid of a small steam locomotive, it was used to haul freight to various downtown businesses at night. Electricity came to the city in the 1890s, and before the end of the decade, Russell Street, the street that we're walking along right now, was lit with electric lights. In 1926, the land along the Edisto River, which is just outside downtown Orangeburg, was cleared, filled in, and the first azaleas were planted. In the early 1950s, 3,500 rose bushes were planted. That's why Orangeburg is also often called the Garden City. The bank of the river, which was such a vital part of the early settlement, morphed into springtime colors, attracting people from all over the nation. In 1972, the first South Carolina Festival of Roses, now called the Orangeburg Festival of Roses, was held. Each year from that date, thousands still flock to Orangeburg in the springtime to enjoy the beauty of the flowers. Across the street from us on our right is the Brigman House. German native Frederick Hermann William Brigman, the owner of a general store in Orangeburg's first mayor, built this house about 1850. He was also responsible for laying out the area that's now known as Amelia Street, the street we're walking along. The house, originally known as Brigman's Folly, was put together using wooden pegs instead of nails. We're now walking past the Blythewood building. Alton Evan Blythewood, owner and operator of one of the first funeral homes in Orangeburg, constructed this building in 1915. Blythewood served as treasurer and cemetery manager of the Orangeburg Cemetery Association and the Burial Society for many years. After his death, his second son took over the management of the funeral home as well as management of the cemetery. There are many beautiful houses of worship in Orangeburg, but probably one of the most beautiful is St. Paul's United Methodist Church. St. Paul's Methodist Church traces its beginnings to 1836 when the first Methodist church was built right here on this spot. A second church was built on the same site in 1859 and was occupied in 1860 when the congregation totaled about 50 people. By the 1890s, with membership in the church growing over 400 people, the current church that you see today was laid out and constructed and on a crucifix plan with a large tower at the southwest corner, as well as those two smaller towers that we see. The building was constructed between 1896 and 1898. On our left, we're walking past the Orangeburg County Courthouse. The first courthouse of Orangeburg was built in 1772 and was destroyed by the British during the American Revolution in 1781. A second courthouse was erected in 1782 in the same area as the first. That building lasted until about 1825 when plans for a new structure were drawn up. That third courthouse was built on Courthouse Square in 1826, but was destroyed during the Civil War by General Sherman's troops in 1865. It too was rebuilt on that same spot. In 1928, this building, which is the fifth Orangeburg County Courthouse, was constructed. The courthouse building that we see today was constructed in 1928. To our left, we're walking past the old Presbyterian Church Cemetery. This cemetery is the final resting place of many of Orangeburg's citizens. Judge Thomas Worth Glover is buried here, along with General David Flavel Jameson, a founder of the Citadel in Charleston and the president of the South Carolina Secession Convention. The seven-story steel frame Hotel Utah was constructed between 1926 and 1927 and was the result of a community action campaign that reflected the optimism of local residents in the future development and growth of Orangeburg. Prominent southeastern architect G. Lloyd Preacher designed the hotel. The Hotel Utah was financed through a stock subscription project which involved many citizens of Orangeburg working through three community action groups: the Young Men's Business League, the Lions Club, and the Rotary Club. These groups met in February of 1926 and by April of 1926 had raised a total of $233,200 in subscriptions. The building has seen a few alterations since its construction, though. Charles Coker Wilson, South Carolina's leading architect of the early 20th century, designed this Italianate home for Lori Mosley in 1921. The house took over 2 years to build and bankrupt 2 contractors. When it was completed, it sported a central vacuum system behind its Italian marble entrance. First Baptist Church had its beginning in December of 1858 when land known as the Old Jail Lot was conveyed to the Orangeburg Baptist Church Society. A year and a half later, on the third Sunday in July of 1860, a group of Baptists and ministers met at the Orangeburg County Courthouse to organize the Orangeburg Church. 15 men and women joined as charter members, and 3 other women were added after their baptism. During the war between the states, Union troops used the church facility to house stable horses and supplies. A cemetery where some of the founding members are buried is located just behind the church. Orangeburg City Hall, City Jail, Police Headquarters, and an auditorium called the Carolina were all built in 1927 for about $175,000. This replaced an old small wooden city hall. Not only did the auditorium serve as a venue for civic events and concerts, but it was also used as a theater by showing silent and talking movies until the early 1970s. This fire station that we see in front of us was built in 1927. The first fire truck, which is still in the possession of the city, was a 1921 American LaFrance fire engine. Outside, we see a 15-foot bronze statue depicting a fireman carrying a small child in one arm and an oil lamp in the other. This statue was constructed in 1902, the base of which was used as a drinking fountain for people with water trials for dogs and horses. I hope you've enjoyed this Wandering Walks of Wonder tour here in Orangeburg, South Carolina. If you're a resident of Orangeburg, make sure to leave a comment on what it's like to live in the city. Also, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we will see you on our next Wandering Walks of Wonder adventure. Take care now. Bye-bye.